right then, on with it. Welcome to the Sunder the Sky podcast. I am your host, Christopher Sky-Sunderer, coming to you once again from my fortified and very well-stocked bunker deep beneath the streets of Kent, Ohio. It is 6:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 20 of 2020. Yeah, I woke up this morning feeling a lot better. Got a really good night's sleep last night, and I got my voice back. So what I wanted to do with this little bonus episode is, in the last several weeks when I haven't been able to podcast, a lot of news items have come and gone, just vanished down the memory hole, and it's stuff I wanted to comment on at the time, but had no voice. So now I'm just going to take this opportunity to backtrack and go through some of these news items in a drive-by fashion. We're just going to hit them one after another. I've got one listener question to get to, and that'll be it for today. I am still cutting all of the Wuhan coronavirus stuff together that I had recorded previously. A lot of new stuff has come to light. People have been sending me all kinds of things from a bunch of sources, and I've had to rethink a lot of things. But once I vet the information, make sure it's solid, I do want to incorporate it into my thoughts on what's going on right now. So I may just end up re-recording the whole thing. It might be a couple more days from what I had initially intended, but I got my voice back. It shouldn't be too long, and that is still coming. So please get your listener questions into me. But I want to, before I get into this drive-by news thing today, or drive-by punditry thing today, I do want to take a minute right here at the top to give a special thanks and just express my thanks to healthcare workers. My mom was a registered nurse at Akron City Hospital for years, so I know firsthand what a thankless job it can be in the best of times, and what a horrible job it can be in times like this. Okay? These people, I want everybody to consider something. These healthcare workers, for starters, they don't get a break during this kind of thing, like so many of the rest of us do. We're all hunkered down in our respective homes, popping popcorn and watching Netflix or whatever you do, whatever your quarantine game involves. So, but healthcare workers, obviously, they don't get a break. Two, they are the people who are there for you to run to for help when and if this thing lands on your face. They are there. They don't get to stay home. They don't get to get a break. They're there, constant as the northern star. The last thing I want you to remember is they are overwhelmingly more at risk of contraction and infection than anyone else. Okay? My friend Nicole, who requested the show topic from yesterday about SNAP, she's one of these people. So, as they say, from all of us here at Sunder the Sky, which is really just me and Olivia. But, from me to you, healthcare workers, Nicole, everybody else that I know who works in healthcare, thank you very much. Okay, you're the ones who are in the trenches during this kind of thing, and I appreciate that. Also, I meant to mention this last time, and it completely slipped my mind. I apologize. 2 listeners to the show, Tony and Dean, married couple, wonderful people. Dean just had a medical procedure on his knee. Not going to go into details, but I will say he is having kind of a rough time. So, Dean, man, I'm praying for you, and I have been praying for you. I will continue to do so. And I ask you listeners, those of you who pray, take a minute to mention Dean when you're talking to God next time, okay? And even if you don't pray, send them your positive thoughts. I'm sure it's appreciated. I also want to thank Jeff, my brother-in-law. He's one of the people who's hooked me up with some, I'll just say, shocking information. Some of which, not all, but some of which, I've already vetted and found to be true, okay? And it's, I'm going to talk about that in the next episode that's coming very soon, okay? It's crazy. Also thanks to Andrea, also a longtime friend of the show, who's sent me some stuff as well. That stuff I'm still looking into, but it definitely has my interest peaked. Her information is basically about how during this crisis, with all the public schools shut down, supposedly they're going to be installing 5G, what do they call them? Signal nodes or distribution nodes into public schools while they're empty. Now 5G, I'll never lie to you people and tell you that I know about something when I don't know about it. And 5G is one of those things that I'm just not very well read on. Okay? But I know there are some legitimate concerns about the health effects, the impact on public health that 5G will have. Okay? So, Andrea, thank you very much. This is something that I am looking into. And hey, guys, listeners, I am always open. Anytime any of you guys, any of you listeners have anything that you'd like me to look into, any BS that you'd like me to expose, just send it my way and I'll give it a look. Half the show last time was 100% prompted by a listener request. This isn't my show, guys. It's our show. Like I said in episode 1, what Sunder the Sky refers to, it's kind of a metaphor. Speaking truth does that. It's like a thunderbolt that lights up the night. Only for a second, but it's profound and necessary for people trying to navigate that darkness. And we are all Sky-Sunderers. We all have this ability. It's one of the greatest gifts bestowed upon us as humans. We can all do this. We can all speak truth. Speaking truth to power is a flash of lightning that splits the darkness and the clouds. That miasma of deception and fraud splits it apart. Okay, and it goes, the regathering of the dark goes by a lot of names. I used one myself in the opening of this show today. Memory hole, right? But the more of us are speaking truth to power, the more sustained that illumination will be. Never hesitate to light up the night. All right? So let's get into this today. Oh, here's one that's more recent. Dated March 18. Hat tip to Breitbart.com. The headline, Zimbabwe Defense Chief. There's a prominent position. God is punishing America with Chinese coronavirus. Well, gee. Sucks to be the other 155 countries catching collateral shrapnel from God's mad-on for the one country that so much as mentions him in their founding documents. Can you imagine what the collectivist elites are in for when he settles up with them on all that satanic baby blood drinking, human trafficking, and pedophilia? Ouch. Shut up, Zimbabwe. Something that kind of came and went in the news cycle, was some commentary about our president from Howard Dean. You may or may not remember Howard Dean, but hat tip to Breitbart.com once again. The headline, Howard Dean, Trump would give Alaska back if Putin asked. Former Governor Howard Dean, Democrat Vermont, said Sunday on CNN's State of the Union that if Russian President Vladimir Putin asked for the state of Alaska back, President Donald Trump would give it to him. The United States, of course, purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million. Dean said, "We don't know what's going to happen yet, and it's a democratic process." Now, this is from a few weeks ago, so they're still talking about impeachment. And I think it is a good process. Everybody complains of how long it is and all that. I used to say it all of the time, and now it has a new meaning. But if you are not tough enough to get through this process, what are you going to do when Putin asks for Alaska back? Well, unfortunately, we have a president who would give it to him today. Yeah, what's the matter, Trump? Don't you have the stones to have all of these false allegations brought against you without any evidence whatsoever? But this was something I was dying to comment on it at the time, and I had no voice. So I wanted to say, now that I am getting my voice back, and it pains me to say it, and I know a lot of you are not going to want to hear this, but I think Howard Dean might be onto something. I think he might be right about this. And you know something? You know something? If you had told me 1 year ago that Trump was going to give Alaska back to Russia or possibly sell it, I wouldn't have believed anything of that. And you know something? You know something? Not only is Trump going to sell Alaska, Tom Harkin, Trump's looking to sell South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. And he's going to sell California and Texas and New York. And he's going to sell South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And he's going to Washington, D.C. to sell off the White House. Okay. Now do you remember who Howard Dean is?
You know something? You know something? If you had told us 1 year ago that we were going to come in third in Iowa, we would have given anything for that. And you know something? You know something? Not only are we going to New Hampshire, Tom Harkin, we're going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. And we're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
Oh, here's another one. Same date, same site. The headline, Amy Klobuchar, Biden will bring back decency and dignity to the White House. Oh, boy. Wednesday on ABC's The View, always a center of reason and rational discourse, Senator Amy Klobuchar argued that 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful former Vice President Joe Biden would, quote, bring back decency and dignity to the White House. Klobuchar said, in terms of what they should know about Joe Biden, I think it's what we saw last night. A true leader, someone who has worked for change his whole life. Never mind the fact that he's been in government longer than anybody else who was running for the Democratic nomination. Worked for change his whole life. Yeah. Someone who will have the back of the American people. What is so missing in this White House, as you just discussed earlier in the show with the way he's been handling the discussion on this virus, what's so missing? The decency, the dignity that Joe Biden will bring back to the White House. He's someone of great empathy, and I know you know this, Megan, because Joe Biden was a good friend of your war criminal collaborator with the enemy dad. She added, he's someone that will go that extra mile. I remember a friend of mine whose husband died, and Joe Biden had come to Minnesota and done an event. When I called to thank him, this is years and years ago, I told him that my friend's husband, who had helped with the event, had suddenly died. It was of a virus actually leaving 3 teenage girls. What the hell does that mean? It was of a virus actually leaving 3 teenage girls. I said, maybe you can drop her a note or something. Oh, the guy left 3 teenage girls behind. Okay. Daughters, I guess. Might be nice, widowed at such a young age. He didn't do that. He said, I want her cell phone. I said, no, you don't have to do that, Mr. Vice President. He said, yes. She continued, he called my friend while she was driving home from work her first day. He made her pull over on the road, the Vice President of the United States, and made her write down his cell phone on her hand so she could call him whenever it was hard. Because he had lost his own family members. Oh my God, that does not sound good. Wow. You know some lady who just lost her husband and is in an emotionally compromised state of mind? Give me that bitch's number. Then he calls her up. Hey, stop, pull over, write my number down. You call me whatever you need and I'll be there. Keep in mind, this is Joe Biden. I'm just saying. So, okay, on this idea that the Klobuchar goblin has that Biden will bring back decency and dignity to the White House, somebody should respond to her comments with decency and dignity, Biden style. You know, shush her, tell her she's full of shit, ask her if she'd like to step outside and settle this with some push-ups, then, you know, trail off mid-sentence having forgotten what you were talking about, and bonus points if you get your dentures to slip off right as you call her tough guy. Whew, man, that story is just Wow. So anyway... Oh, look, everybody. It's Fredo and Little-Jimmy.
At one point during this address, the president referred to the coronavirus as a, quote, foreign virus. Now, why the president would go as far as to describe it as a foreign virus, it's going to come across to a lot of Americans as smacking of xenophobia to use that kind of term in this speech, Chris.
Well, look, sometimes we can answer the questions, and the answer is he's doing it to put blame somewhere else.
All this garbage about, oh, it's, why is Trump calling it a Chinese virus? Isn't that racist? He's calling it a Chinese virus because it is a Chinese, wait for it, virus. It came from China, it originated in China, and I am going to almost 100% prove in my next episode that it was man-made in China. And you'd have to have some serious brain damage to not see that at this point. This is not conspiracy theorist talk. It is really patently obvious how it originated. And the mainstream press, they're always looking for a way to get Trump, right? And this started, if you remember, because it was only a few days ago, it started with them saying Trump's not taking the coronavirus seriously enough and he's not responding quickly enough. Well, what has happened since then? Since they started saying that? We found out that, yes, he is taking it very seriously and he responded really quickly. And he did a lot of really smart things to help contain and respond to the situation, right? So they can't keep saying that. So now they're going to switch right back to the same thing the left always does, which is to dick around with words and the connotations of words. All right, the whole thing about political correctness, it's not about, I know I've talked about this on the show before, it's the same thinking behind disarmament and bans, strawman and ad hom. You're the wrong person to say this, and the way you're saying it is wrong, which is disarming you by taking away your arguments and then banning you from making any arguments in the first place. And why? Why did they do that? Because that's not argument. That's shutting down argument. That is shutting down debate. It's not winning a debate. I just answered my own question. The reason they do that is because they can't win in debate. Their ideas are shit. Their values are shit. Their principles are just platitudes. It's all bullshit. They have the most mobile goalposts in all of intellectual history, in the history of sentient, sapient beings, because they just float around to wherever they need to be to contradict people with real principles. And since they can't win in terms of argument, they have to shut down the argument. So what do? They attack the language. Does anybody else remember this? I'll try to find a clip. Trump had used the term anchor babies. I think this was when he was still campaigning. It may have been just after the election. But some dipshit pundit posing as a journalist, it might have been Little-Jimmy Acosta, asked him, do you think it might be problematic? Do you think it's appropriate for you to use the term anchor babies to describe these people? And Trump said, well, what term should I use? And the pundit responded, individuals whose parents were illegal immigrants but who have established a life and he trailed on and on and on and Trump just put up his hand and said, okay, I think I'll just keep calling them anchor babies, thank you. Because the guy didn't have an answer to that very simple question. What term would you prefer I use? Because Trump right there is saying, what am I allowed to say to point out who I'm talking about here? And they had no answer for that, because the point is to make it so he can't say that at all, that he can't reference those people at all. That's the point of political correctness. It's to take so many words and terms off the table by attaching negative connotations to them and negative intentions to their usage that you no longer can even use those words. And it's all about just making it as difficult and convoluted as possible to make your arguments. See, then they never have to try to counter-argue any of it, because they have no arguments themselves. They have no counter-arguments. All they have are ad hominems and straw men, and occasionally, very, very occasionally, they'll trot out another fallacy, and they'll act like they just invented some radical new like verbal technology when they do that. Oh, you didn't see that coming. It was a no true Scotsman this time. Right? That's what that's about. The goddamn virus came from China. That's why he's calling it a Chinese virus. Oh, but when you know, this other virus that originated in America spread, no one called it an American virus. Yes, they fucking did! In other countries, they did! What's happening here is the Chi-Coms are attempting to cover their tracks, and they're attempting to spin everything because the Communist Party in China is solely and particularly responsible for what's happening here. So what they're doing is they're trying to shift blame everywhere but themselves, up to and including the ridiculous ad hominem attack of saying, if you point out that this virus came from here, that's racist. And the American press, hell, the first world press all over, is only too thrilled to just take all of their talking point cues from China on this. I mean, the Communist Party in China is basically the ideological mothership of the left everywhere, the globalist elite everywhere, the murderous collectivist elite everywhere. China is where that has been most quote-unquote successful, if that's what you want to call it. Never mind the fact that there's a Chinese biological warfare research lab a 5-minute walk from where the first cases of COVID-19 turned up. Never mind the fact that China started quarantining cities before any cases of coronavirus had manifested there. Is anybody fucking home? And what do we have over here? You know, the coronavirus is going to be Trump's Chappaquiddick. What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, that's what that's about, and you know it. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Just don't lose sight of it, because this is, I mean, it's like any other time. The moment they get scared, they duck and cover under their favorite hidey hole, which is the ad hominem attack that goes by the name racist. You're a racist! Chinese is not a race, Skip. Well, you're a jingoist. Me. Just shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Fredo Cuomo, shut the fuck up. Don Lemon, shut the fuck up. I mean, you literally, when you speak, it is negative usefulness. It's worse than not useful at all. And I gotta say, it's the only thing in my life I've ever agreed with Dr. Drew Pinsky on, but I'm with him 100%. The press needs to be held accountable for the panic they've created. Absolutely. In particular, the people that are pulling those triggers. I mean, the people that are telling all their little minions. You think Fredo does any of his own fucking thinking? If you believe that, then you obviously don't do any of yours. I'm talking about the people sitting at the top of these corporate monolithic conglomerates. They need to be held accountable. I mean, for God's sake, more people have died today from heart attacks than have died from COVID-19 all over the planet since this thing started. Stop scaring everybody to death. It ain't that bad. And we can totally survive this. And it is China's government's fault that this is happening. It is not racist to say that. It is accurate. Sadiq Khan, that insipid jackass mayor of London, the same guy who said, oh, terrorist attacks are just part and parcel of living in a major city. Because Lord knows I can't disavow any of my Muslim brothers' activities. So hey, you're all just going to have to deal with the fact you live in a major city? You're going to have to dodge some bullets and suicide bombers every once in a while. I mean, come on. That same idiot has come out criticizing Trump for saying Chinese virus. I mean, hey, Sadiq, maybe criticism is just part and parcel of Butterfingers letting one of your bioweapons slip out into the public. Let me provide some context, okay? Viruses are overwhelmingly the most plentiful form of life on this planet. There are over 10 million different viruses in any single drop of seawater. Okay, look that up. That is not hyperbole. And most of them, by far, most of them are absolutely harmless to humans. Okay, but they are so plentiful that viral weapon research has the very real potential of turning many, many viruses against us and unleashing viral strains that could cause lots of other viruses to mutate and be dangerous to humans. And this is why a lot of activists that no one has taken seriously until now, people are listening now, have been saying for decades that governments the world over need to cut the shit and stop conducting all of these biowarfare testing programs. If something ends up wiping out the human race, bioweapon has a bigger marker on that particular betting pool than any other possible cause. I want you to contemplate that. Now, I'm not saying COVID-19 is going to do it, because that doesn't seem to be much of one. It spreads very quickly. I mean, it spreads as easily or more easily than the common cold, but is only really dangerous to people with compromised immune systems or small, very small children or the elderly. But it's still dangerous. You know, it's coming up on the same death toll as Ebola here. Anyway. Okay, this next thing. Hat tip to the New York Post. And before I get into this one, I gotta say to my buddy Vince, over at the Inconclusive Breakdown, take your shot at AOC now, because she ain't long for this world anymore, pal. Hat tip New York Post. The headline, the AOC tapes. Dem darling trashes Hillary Clinton for failed presidential campaign. By John Levine of The Post. This was from February 22nd. The way this article starts. It's not her hill to die on. Representative Alejupta Occasional Cortex offered a brutal assessment of Hillary Clinton's failed 2016 campaign for president, saying excuses such as misogyny among the electorate were, quote, stupid. Hey, Democrat voters, just process this for a minute. Alejupta is calling you stupid, and placed the blame for her historic defeat on Clinton alone. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be down. But she didn't try hard enough in Michigan, AOC said during a 2016 Facebook Live video taken while traveling through the Midwest with friends. She didn't, make a single, visit to the United Auto Workers before the general election. And then they're, upset that the union workers didn't organize for her. AOC's fellow traveler, actress Maria Swisher, said, we needed to win the Rust Belt, and we could have done that, and there are places that went for Obama that didn't go for Hillary. So there's a lot of complex things going on here. Ooh! What did she do just there? Now, this wasn't AOC. This was her ditzy actress friend. But they just admitted that there were people who voted for Obama who voted for Trump. Now, you have to be a discerning person, which most leftists are not, to have picked up on that, but it is in there. The moment is indicative of the years of bad blood which has existed between Sanders superfans like AOC and establishment Democrats who backed Clinton. Just last month, the former Secretary of State laced into Sanders in a new documentary, saying that, quote, nobody likes him, adding that she felt bad for people like AOC who got sucked into Sanders' shtick. Well, what can I say? I mean, how do I respond to any of this, guys? They're both right. AOC's right. Everything she said about Hillary is right there. She is correct. Hillary didn't visit the United Auto Workers. Hillary did not make enough public appearances. Hillary's loss is squarely her responsibility. You know, she didn't want to come out to the public about whatever the hell is going on with her health, which we still don't know. That weird venom gland spot on her tongue and how she kept collapsing in public. And you can't just hide things forever, hill dog. Okay? Arcanicide will come out. People are waking up. People are on to you, bitch. And then Hillary's also right. You know, nobody likes Sanders. The only people who like Sanders are brain-dead commie college dropouts like Kyle. Remember Kyle Jurek? Yeah. When Kyle Jurek says shit like that, like, oh, we're going to put people into gulags and blah, 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 that is just some young kid. That's just some punk kid talking, okay? The only thing that really upsets me about that is not that that kid is so stupid, you know, whatever. It's just, like, he was working as a field organizer on the Sanders campaign. So here's someone who infiltrated the campaign who's obviously a radical communist. And yeah, I know Sanders is a radical communist. I know that, you know that. You know what people like Kyle Jurek, when they bloviate, and what they're doing is giving up the con. They're blowing their cover. Because I really believe that's how Bernie Sanders feels. You know, it's just like the little kid when mom and dad are planning a surprise party for one of the kids, and one of the other kids hears about it, and mom and dad swear them to secrecy, but they reveal it in a moment of excitement. They start bragging about the fact that they know it. That's what Kyle Jurek is. And that other guy, whose name I can't even remember, because frankly it doesn't matter. That's what that is. You're seeing that. And everybody, AOC, the squad, as it's called, AOC, the She-Orc, and Ilhan Omar. You guys all remember who Ilhan Omar is, right?
So, if we have the same mother, tonight I'm gonna fuck my brother.
That's what they are. They are the torpedo that is sinking the Democratic Party, because they have driven the ideological left up and over the top. So I don't know what to say. They're both right. Moving on. And here's something that's a little more recent. The headline, Kamala Harris. Trump beats people up, makes them feel small, and feel alone. This is from March 8th, so not terribly long ago. Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat, California, you know, a state bursting in prosperity and freedom, said Sunday in Alabama, after commemorating the 55th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, that President Donald Trump beats people up and makes them, quote, feel small and feel alone. And this was all a preamble to her endorsing Biden for the presidency, saying he has, quote, served our country with dignity. Whoa, okay, and we need him now more than ever. I will do everything in my power to help elect him the next president of the United States. Yeah, good luck, Mighty Mouse. Okay, so Kamala Harris is upset. Trump beats people up, makes them feel small and feel alone. Reality check. This is Kamala Harris. Do I need to remind everybody who she is? What she is? Uniquely, even on the left, she seems to openly celebrate tyranny. And not just, I mean, she does. She openly celebrates tyranny, and more than that, she brags about violent tyrannical things that she's done to poor people, and in particular to poor black people. This woman of color who's supposed to be this champion of, and she's talking about how Trump bullies people, makes them feel small and feel alone. This is the woman who laughed about throwing parents in jail over their children's truancy. Hat tip to theguardian.com. Nathan Robinson, the author of this piece. The headline, Kamala Harris laughed about jailing parents over truancy, but it's not funny. This is from January 31st of last year, actually. So he says, for progressives, which he is a progressive, full disclosure, there are good reasons to be suspicious of the idea that former prosecutors make good politicians. The United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world. That is true. And its criminal punishment system disproportionately punishes poor people. That is true. And people of color. That is not true. Prosecutors have a leading role in sustaining this injustice, in part because they tend to view prisons as solutions to social problems. That worldview is fully on display in recently unearthed video footage of Kamala Harris defending her decision to criminally prosecute parents for their children's truancy. In the video taken at the Commonwealth Club in 2010, when Harris was district attorney of San Francisco, Harris says that because, quote, a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime, she decided to treat parents with absentee children as criminals. Harris cheerfully recounts the story of sending an attorney from her office to intimidate a homeless single mother whose children were missing school. She smiles as she recalls how she instructed her subordinates to, quote, look really mean, so that the mother would take the threat of jail seriously. In separate footage, Harris mocks those on the left who say things like build schools, not jails, and put more money into education, not prisons, suggesting they are naive sloganeers who do not understand crime prevention. Okay, hey, I won't argue that liberals are naive sloganeers who do not understand crime prevention. That's true. But here you have a woman laughing as she brags about sending someone from her office to intimidate a homeless woman whose children were missing school. God forbid this poor woman's children not get their daily dose of government indoctrination and propaganda. And remember, this woman, Harris, she's one of the people most vehemently against school choice. So they want school to become even more propagandist. They want to lower the age at which children are forced to begin their indoctrination to the age of 3. They want to eliminate the summer vacation. They want your kid from the age of 3 all year, 5 days a week, and they want to throw you in jail if you disagree. And they don't want you to have a choice about which school your kid goes to. Kamala Harris again, quote, as a prosecutor in law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district as a carrot. Let's work together in tandem to get those kids in school, Harris said. She also bragged about the power of her DA office letterhead with a large police badge logo at the top to frighten parents and families when they received her letter outlining the possible legal consequences of truancy. But Trump bullies people, makes them feel small, and makes them feel alone.
I would not be standing here were it not for the education I received.
No shit.
And I know many of us will say the same thing. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco. And frankly, my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it. And this is what we did. We recognized that in that initiative, as a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district has got a carrot. Let's work in tandem around our collective objective and goal, which is to get those kids in school. So, to that end, on my letterhead, now let me tell you something about my letterhead. When you're the DA of a major city in this country, usually the job comes with a badge. And there is often an artistic rendering of said badge on your stationery. So I sent a letter out on my letterhead to every parent in the school district. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
Look at the glee and the delirious joy in her eyes when she brags about bullying poor black people with government force. Hey kids, don't miss school or we're going to throw your parents in a rape cage. It's sick. She is sick. Okay, listener questions. And I'm going to start sounding kind of nasal because my allergies are kicking in. Anyway, first one comes from Joseph. He says, I think you're wrong about Joe Biden having had dementia since '94. How can you honestly say that? He was lucid as vice president. Okay, Joseph, I was kidding. Now, in your defense, I have a major kind of, I don't know, it's a flaw that I have trouble naming or categorizing. But it's this. My sense of humor, I tend to deliver snark and sarcasm in total deadpan. Same tone, same cadence, everything, as when I'm totally serious. Because to me, that's more funny. That's a more funny delivery for sarcasm than inflecting your voice, waggling your eyebrows, and calling for a rim shot, right? The problem, and how this is to the detriment of this show, is that the only people who always get when I'm being sarcastic are people who know me really well. Most of the people listening to this show don't know me well enough to make that distinction. Even the ones who know me mostly know me from Facebook or Twitter, so they're not used to my voice. They're not used to me actually talking. I've got some very dear friends named Jerry and Natasha. They, along with a couple other friends of mine, Matt and Steve, have an actual play role-playing gaming podcast called Myths and Mystics. I'll have a link to that in the description box. Make sure to check that out, particularly if you're into gaming. It's great. Anyway, Jerry and Natasha, married couple. I've known them for years. Jerry, though, I've known much longer. Now, to give you a bit of background here, I'm a big-time role-playing gamer. Always have been, ever since I was a little kid. And I'm talking about the old-fashioned pen and paper Dungeons and Dragons style RPGs. I also did a lot of World of Darkness LARPing, or live-action role-playing, back in my mid-20s. I'm almost always the GM or DM if I'm playing. If I'm in a game, I'm probably the one running it. Okay? I just enjoy that way more than playing. And the GM or DM, for those who don't know, is the moderator, the storyteller in the game, who controls the world and tells the players what their characters see and hear and everything. Running an RPG, GMing an RPG, is a particular skill set. It takes a lot of practice to do it well. You've got to run a lot of bad games before you can run a good one. And so it's a particular breed of gamer who tend to GM a lot. I'm one of those people, and Jerry is one of those people. So Jerry is somebody I can talk to about gaming in ways that I can't talk to a lot of other gamers about, because he understands GMing more than most, all right? I mean, I've been playing since I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I've been GMing since I was about 14. Okay, so it's something that I just love doing. It's the way I play, okay? And I've known Jerry, like I said, I've been gaming with Jerry for almost 20 years. He's a really close friend, dear friend. I love him like a brother. Natasha, his wife, also a really dear friend, but I haven't known her as long. I've only known Natasha for about 7 or 8 years. And she almost never picks up on my sarcasm. Jerry always does. Matt always does. Matt I've known as long as I've known Jerry, just about. And when I think about it, when I think about the subconscious impression that Natasha must have about me, considering she can never tell when I'm kidding, what a lunatic she must see me as about a lot of things, about certain things, because she doesn't have Jerry and Matt's 2 decades of experience picking out the microscopic nuance in my cadence that indicates whether or not I really mean something I'm saying. I just have to laugh in a semi-horrified or semi-mortified kind of way. This is something that, especially for the purposes of the show, I'm working on this, okay? And Jerry will tell you, I've been working on this for a few years, and the jury's out on how well I'm doing. It's a definite flaw. It's a weakness, particularly as far as podcasting is concerned. I mean, hell, it's not exactly a strength in daily life either, because I can end up giving even people who know me fairly well the impression that I've just turned into a complete asshole. Right? Because they can't tell I'm kidding. But yes, I was kidding. I don't really believe Joe Biden has had dementia since 94. If you rewind that episode back a little ways, you'll hear me remark that going by the official guide list of the warning signs of dementia, when it comes to the issue of boundaries and personal space, he's had dementia since the 70s. That was obviously a joke, right? I mean, I hope. But with me, it's hard to tell. I know. I don't think Biden has to have dementia in order for it to be a bad idea for him to be running for president. It is definitely the case now. And it is definitely some form of elder abuse for the Democrats to be propping him up there the way they are. But to me, I mean, I've got all I need for a no vote on Biden just on the fact that he's a liar, a crook, and a pedophile. Okay, and we did get one more listener question from Matthew on Facebook, guy I've known since high school. He says, it's not really a question, but he says, today is Cenk Uyghur's birthday. I'm wondering how you'll wish him well. Well, thank you, Matthew, for letting me know. I did not know that. But you know what? As much as I do beat up on Cenk Uyghur, I am going to go ahead and give the greasy old buffalo a present today. Okay, you know, he's having a rough time lately. He got his ass kicked up between his shoulder blades in that election he tried to throw his hat into, and he got thrown off a flight because he was abusive to the staff. I'm getting another message from Matthew as I speak. Uyghur, sometimes spelled U-Y-G-H-U-R or U-I-G-H-U-R, is the name of a Chinese ethnic minority, same principle as the Kurds in Iraq, that has been brutally oppressed by the Chinese government. Well, yeah, the Uyghurs. I wonder if Cenk is aware of that. Now, Matthew, I'm not going to use the name that you're using for Mr. Uyghur. And that brings me to the gift that I have for you, Mr. Uyghur, on this, your birthday. I also mispronounce his name. But a lot of people do, because they, you know, it's obviously an ethnic name, right? Cenkyuйgur. You know, it's hard to tell how to pronounce that, okay? It turns out they have pronounced it. If you just tune into the Young Turks, they pronounce it on there correctly all the time, right? So I just want to let everybody know I will no longer refer to Cenk Uyghur as Cenk Uyghur. I'm going to start saying his name with the correct pronunciation. And that is my gift to you on your birthday. So let it be known, everyone, the correct pronunciation is Chunk Yogurt. And Mr. Yogurt, from me, Christopher Sky-Sunderer, to you. Okay, and that's all for today. Tune in 2 or 3 days for my thoughts on the pandemic and what's going on and what you need to know and what you need to be aware of. Okay, and we'll talk soon.
Like, you know me, I get more agitated when I'm hungry and tired. So, look, if you guys think this is bad, wait till, if that plane doesn't actually come from the hangar in 20 minutes. Plane? Where's the plane? Where's the plane? Is there a plane? Where is it? Where's the plane?
Do you have a home card?
Where's the plane? Where's the plane? No, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, no, but listen, if we just sit here and take it, they'd have us here until 6 in the morning, and then they'd us even harder, okay? So, I need to, you're a supervisor, aren't you? Where's the plane?
Sorry, I'm not going to answer your question.
No, I know, because I've been here for 4 hours. Don't give me this. Guess what just happened? They kicked me off the plane.